Philosophical Mysticism, Lesson 12, Logic in the Mind. So logic in the mind. So ideas, as was previously claimed, require consciousness. But we must acknowledge that consciousness forces the world to present itself a certain way. At its most fundamental level, consciousness produces the laws of logic. But it's important to point out that the laws of logic do not necessarily apply to the world, but rather to the mind. So the actual world may be illogical, it might not be logical at all, but the mind, it forces the world to present a certain way, and the world, as it's ordered by the mind, will follow the laws of logic. So again, the world may be different than logical laws would entail, but the mind is going to be logical. It's going to follow logical laws. The most important laws of logic are the law of identity, the law of excluded middle, and the law of non-contradiction. Law of identity, A equals A. That is, a thing is identical to itself. Law of excluded middle, A or not A. A thing is either what it is or not what it is. Law of non-contradiction, A does not equal not A. A thing is not what it is not. So these are going to be the three classical laws of logic, and I'm arguing that the mind is going to follow these laws. As far as ideas are concerned, in particular, their capacity to be transmitted to others, the most consequential law of logic is the law of non-contradiction. And the law of non-contradiction again holds that a thing is not what it is not. Or more succinctly, A does not equal not A. But it's important here, though, we should add at the same time. And this is extremely important because without the addition of temporality, the law of non-contradiction is going to lack teeth. So for instance, a thing could easily be what it is and what it is not at different times. So we need to say at the same time, it can't be both what it is and what it is not. So there must be some moment in play, some temporal moment in play. Aristotle held this moment to be a speech act. He famously argued that as soon as you speak, the law of non-contradiction is proven. So as soon as you open your mouth and speak, you prove the law of non-contradiction. And if the person you're talking to rejected such a position, you might as well be talking to a vegetable. That's his claim that he's going to make. If the person you're talking to just is going to say both A equals not A, then you might as well just be talking to a vegetable. Logic and time. But making the move mentioned just now is going to prove extraneous to what should be allowed to enter into supposedly self-evident axioms. So the laws of logic are supposed to be first principles, self-evident. They don't rely on anything else for their proof. But we're saying here, though, when you start talking, when you start communicating with others, all of a sudden you're introducing time that really shouldn't be allowed within self-evident axioms. So if we want to use time, we're going to have to show or prove or derive time independently of the laws of logic. And I take it at least in philosophical mysticism, I do make an argument for time. So in the previous lesson, I make this argument for the primitive idea of time. And it is independently derived. So we must bring in this primitive idea of time to make the law of non-contradiction have teeth. Now, I think I kind of do that, at least if my argument is correct. So if the argument that I give for time is correct, we have the means to extend the laws of logic, the law of non-contradiction at least, outside of one's own mind. Thus, the idea of time, the primitive idea of time, proves paramount to the development of all non-primitive ideas, where non-primitive ideas are ideas that can in principle be communicated. So time is going to make communication possible according to the laws of logic. So a really quick treatment here that I'm definitely going to develop fully in the next lesson is that if we take the non-primitive ideas or communicable ideas along with non-contradiction in time, they're going to be binary. So this is really important. They're going to, if you take non-primitive ideas along with non-contradiction, law of non-contradiction in time, you're going to wind up with binary ideas. That is, a thing is either what you take it to be or not what you take it to be in communication. A or not A. So you're going to have this sort of binary setup. And this is going to have really huge implications regarding the nature of ideas that I'm going to discuss later in the next lesson. But this is sort of a setup here to sort of give you an idea of how logic and the mind are connected. If you want to learn more, check out the book Philosophical Mysticism, A Spiritual Handbook for Mankind by Nicholas Schroeder. Definitely worth a read.